Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nadezhda. It was very nice, very important. We don't have it so globally. It is a little bit simple for us, but we are trying to create similar projects. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Urban Forum, for this. So there was a project initiated with Soros Fund. We have won one of the grants. There were 6 grants won, and our project for development of public spaces on the example of the microdistrict Tastaq was taken. There were 6 people who initiated this project, and during 8 months there were 25 people participating. There were different students from architectural departments of different universities, and even 2 students from here that study in London. I will tell you in short what was the initiative of this project. This is our city. So in red you can see the micro-districts. There are some panel houses, built panel apartment houses. So 25% is the private development. So this is our inheritance that was formed during the last 100 years. So here we can see this of the main problems that when we started, if you put in the restaurants of Almaty, there is such map that comes up. You can see that the restaurants are more in the center, and then more to the boundary of the city, it is not that much enhanced. And you can see the best parks, the best entertainment places are all in the center, and going up to that part of the city, it is not that big. We're thinking how to enhance that, how we can change it. So we took as an example the microdistrict Tastaq. It is on the border between the center and the boundary of the city. So when we started to study this microdistrict, we were very much inspired by what we found. Here we can see the scheme of the functional zoning between the territories of the buildings. In gray, you can see the territories where we cannot have access. There are some private territories or some maybe storage areas. In orange, there are municipal areas, there are schools, there are kindergartens in this area, or only for the users. So partially you can have access there and use some playgrounds or some sports grounds. So in very light blue, you can see the yard zones, the yard areas. It was very difficult to identify them because they are not anyhow marked on the maps. In white you can see the roads, and the yellow are the public so-called spaces, but usually it's some abandoned places, maybe some empty spaces, and they're in a very poor state. So it can be related to all the regions of development of this area. So if we go further, so our project was to identify these public areas and then understand how they work, and then we had to identify some kind of zone that we can enhance, that we can develop further. So we decided not to study further this territory sitting in office or according to 2Gs or some Google Maps. We wanted to study it in the region itself, in the district itself. So most of our time we spent there. So we suggested to take some architectural interactions. We were going through the district with the plates, And the citizens were answering our questions. They were writing on the stickers. They were pinning something on the plate. So there were so many interactive questionnaires done. And I will tell you more about those that the citizens could influence our design, our project. So one of this was the most visited places in the city. There is a map, and there is their district, Tastaq district. So the first task was to pin the most visited places in the city during the resting, and the second one was to pin for the citizen to pin the places while working. So if the person works somewhere in the center, if it is some mobile work, not stationary in the office, then they had to pin places that they visit in the city. So we had questioned more than 100 people. So we archivated this information and we built up such a map. So we did this in order to see what functions do the citizens need. Why do they go out of their district and go to the city? What can we do for them to stay more in their district so that it becomes more eco-centric? So this scheme is also very important, very interesting. Here the citizens had to pin on this local map to their most popular pedestrian routes. So how, again, their routes during the resting times and then the working times, or maybe when they just go out for some of their own business. And when we collected this information, we came up with this diagram. So in red, in very thick red, you can see that Tolibi Street and Rozibakiva Street have the most thickness because there are most like trading centers. There is a trading market here on Rozibakiva Street. So it was very important for us to see that there is a very big thickness in Dusenova Street, in the middle of this district. We have marked this information, and I would like you to pay attention to this because it will be very much influenced. Our project will be very much influenced by this. Also, the citizens had to mark in black places that cause some insecurity that they don't like, and in green they had to mark good places in this district, what they like, where they mostly spend their time, that inspire them anyhow. Also, we worked out this scheme, and for the bad or poor places, we saw what problems were there. Sometimes the problems were connected to bad development, to some ugliness of these places, or some problems for pedestrian routes. Here, this is again about problems. And the good places we studied, and we tried to understand why these places are considered good by the citizens, and pleasant areas, how we could apply this in our project. So if we go further, we took the diagram of the public spaces. Here it is. This is only public places, public areas marked here. We started to put in the diagrams that we had found during our interactive questionnaires. So through this, we understood that the Dusenova Street is a public area. So there are some pedestrian scenarios here, and we can draw a conclusion from this that it is some kind of naturally built alley in Tastaq, and we decided to take it as a project. So this diagram is coming out from the bad and good areas. This is the only one well-developed and the most comforted place in this district, and one of the main main importance was that there is a lot of greenery in this region, and there is a children's playground, and also this diagram, the most visited places. So they would mark the whole region. So this map came up of the existing places. And after this, we printed the alley of Tastaq on a very big scale. So we went out and again worked with citizens. We were suggesting more than 60 different functions, and the citizens would choose themselves one of the functions up to 10. And there was one mutual concept created from here. So the main thing here was that this well-developed place, throughout the alley there is some also traffic. So we asked them, do you want this alley to look like this? And all the citizens would say yes, so 100% of citizens would agree with this. So we started to work on this concept. All of it is connected to some apartment houses, and in some places it is bordering some kindergartens and schools. So we decided to create loud zones and quiet zones. So the quiet ones would have some quiet functions, maybe small benches, small children grounds, and it was in green. And in blue we had the loud. It can be some sports ground, maybe some football, volleyball grounds, maybe some fairs to be conducted. So if we go further, also we developed a concept that is called the Alley of 10 Parks. So it is all divided by 10 parts, and we gave the topic to each of it. And on each of these parts, we started to work on some concept, some idea. For example, the park of trees. Besides the basic functions, we also wanted to create something like an opportunity for citizens to grow some trees, and then the park will start to develop, start to change for better. And another one, on the crossings of Duisenova and Brusilovskого, in parallel with us, there were guys that won a project. It is called the Theater of Neighbors, and also in the microdistrict of Tastaq, they had to fulfill this project. So they wanted to develop this region, this microdistrict, culturally, using this Theater of Neighbors. So we talked to them and we showed them our concept. So they wanted to place this theater in one of the yards, but we told them that we have this project, and we suggested a concept of multifunctional podium where they can perform their theater, and also there can be some picnics or some other maybe some other events can be conducted. So this theater is functioning very successfully. So here on this picture, we can see the whole concept. Also, we have worked out the summer activities and the winter activities on this alley. On each of the stages of this project, we would show our ideas to the citizens, and we have created the WhatsApp group where we had more than 200 members, and we were trying to take all the feedback and work with citizens and see what they think about this project. how can we could see and tell them that they can change this project through its implementation. Then we finished our project and we showed it to the guys from Urbanistic Center. They are very creative. They work together with Akimat. They showed it in Almalinsky Akimat. It is the department that is responsible for Tastaq microdistrict, and the Akimat was also performing, and these guys were also like a connection point for us. We can go further. This is all from the concept itself. We would here show the existing users and how the alley can change the typologies of the users. If we go further, during this process, the process of discussion, there was a small territory chosen from Arenska Street to Gaidara Street. And the Akimat suggested to plan the project to be built in this area. We didn't give this for development. We again studied. We made the questionnaire for all the citizens that have their windows facing this alley. We had this questionnaire, and we were asking them, do they want to see some certain functions on this alley? Or maybe they want to add any kind of their own visions. And we have this diagram that shows what should be on this alley. So they were totally against the sportive field, the sports ground, because it is a very small area, and then the window would be just facing the sports ground. Everybody was for the training facilities on the ground. There was a big argument about the benches. The citizens didn't want to have benches because they would say that there are groups of people gathered that cause some noise, that drink some alcohol. And if we look, so we suggested that the pedestrian route that is only 4 meters from the house to move towards the alley and put in the functions that the citizens wanted. So that was the concept that we had. So we supported the pedestrian route that was already in place, and we tried to enhance it and to add something that would just make this better. So during 3 or 4 months, we have implemented this project. This is the picture before and after. So this is the autumn picture, so that we don't misunderstand the greenery, because in the summer, when everything is blooming, it's very beautiful. And here, to see the scale of works, you can see. So when we were doing the studies on this alley, the pedestrian, the number of pedestrians was very low, and after we built this alley, it was multiplied by 3, so it's more than 2,000 people going through the alley an hour. So, but we didn't come down. We became interested in how the citizens react to this alley and what do they think about it. So we created such questionnaires. Again, we came to the alley, and then we started to collect feedback. In general, all the citizens supported this project. They were very much into it. There were some moments that could be worked on, but We have conclusions here from these questionnaires, and that's all I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marat. And because you finished a little earlier, we have some space between before the coffee break. We have 10-15 minutes for questions and answer session. So we have a second microphone. Please raise your hand and tell who you're addressing the question to. Let's try to be as brief as possible. My question is to both of the speakers. First to Nadezhda about this park. So I would be interested to know how much. You said it took about 3 years to design. How much did it take you? How long did it take you to discuss the whole thing with the stakeholders before architects started to design? And the same question to Marat. How much time did you dedicate to engaging with the citizens before you started work? I have an important remark, so something I didn't mention because I was very excited. The team was very big. We were interacting only with the citizens. There was a big architect team. It's a bureau called Architectural Airbornes or Architectural Descent. These are very active people who are very actively developing various projects in Kazakhstan. So there is a pool. We had a group of environmentalists plus a subgroup who are, specialists on mushrooms, because the forest hosts a lot of rare mushrooms. Plus, we had a subgroup of dendrologists, of tree specialists. So our objective was to produce as little impact on the forest as possible. We had a large engineering team who developed documents, and we had a big team of contractors who tried to build in a very high-quality manner. So it was a lot of people and a lot of communities. Well, palm track. So I'm just leading now to the answer to your question. Palm track is the first infrastructure for biking. This type biking infrastructure had never existed in Kazan. Plus, we have a division between professional and non-professional infrastructure. And palm track participated. So the professional bicycle riders participated in designing this infrastructure. So all these people, about 100 people. So the bicycle riders think that it was them who authored the project. They forget about the architects. So we mixed with each other. We had a very short span of time. In 2016, when we started developing the design, it was April, I think. It was March, late March. We were supposed to start building in July and August and hand over the project in December. Why? Because this was all budgetary funds, or a lot of it was budgetary funds. And there is a budgetary cycle which lasts for 1 year and never more. And the whole implementation process took about 8 months. So this is terribly short, but we have no other options to work in Russia. So we have just 6 months to do everything. Therefore, the engagement with citizens was sort of integrated in the whole work. So it was happening basically concurrently. We had just 2 months before we started the design, and later we just kept interacting. And so we often had to re-coordinate our drawings. Unfortunately, this is the way it happens, but you know, very often we hear that participatory design makes it longer for us. But really, it's not so. That it can be short, and 1 year is enough if we implement, if we interact with people at each stage. So engaging with people, with citizens, took us about 6 months, including surveys and polls. We spent the bulk of time in the field. The project itself didn't take much time. From April to September, we were residing in that area and we fell in love with it. May I ask you one more question? When Nadia was talking about her team, I had a question. How at the very start, when the initiative occurred, how do you find all these stakeholders? How do you know about all these environmentalists, mushroom specialists, tree specialists, etc.? So how do you gather, how do you collect this information about the users of the space? We decided that we will take several questions at once, and our speakers will answer them one by one. Since so many people were involved, who headed this project? Was it an architect or a non-architect? So who brought all these people together? And who had the last word, so to speak? Who had the decisive voice? So as experts in developing parks and microdistricts, are you going to have some other projects? And for children, why do they build playgrounds in the yards for smaller children from 4 to 6? And why don't they build playgrounds for children from 7 upwards? So they could have some sports grounds at schools. So I'll try to answer all questions. I'm not sure I remember all. So where do we take people? First, the Republican program for developing public spaces has secured trust, and so we came forth with a pool of experts, and the program consulted with this pool. So we have a lot of public discussions. And we participate in these public discussions, and we meet and we network, and we see people who are ready to get involved into projects. Plus, Kazan has long been dealing with parks, etc. So we have developed a pool of experts who are interested in the projects. So there was a huge study on the trees and on mushrooms. So it's mostly the city community, the architectural airbornes became, formed through training. Some people remained in Tatarstan, but mostly these are people from Tatarstan who formed a new bureau. Next, there was a question about who made the final decision. Who brought together all people. Initially, our role was to understand who these people were, and then to organize the working process in a way that people would meet, and first we wanted to meet to meet professionals with match professionals with non-professionals, and we did not have the deciding opinion, of course. So the decisions were a result of discussions between the head architect, the chief architect, the head of the program, the executive committee for improvement of Kazan, we, and environmentalists. So we had a series of discussions where we tried to work out optimal decisions, but formally, officially, the government officials who are the city managers are in more position to decide how things will be because they have the resources. But actually, we did have a big say. There was no problem about communities' interests being taken into account. And Natalia Fischer has a lot of credit because she built very good communications and gave the opportunity for many specialists to be heard. But this doesn't happen all the time, but this is something we had in our project. About yards, it's a great idea. Schools should be developed. We think that there should be an integrated strategy, but this comes into contradiction with the idea of private property. So we work with other spaces, so we were able to participate in them. So about your question, whether we are going to do anything further. Well, as I have said, working with public territories is a common post-Soviet problem for all micro-district environment and for us as well. And of course, we would like the same work to do the similar work in other micro-districts, in other districts or boroughs of the city, because this problem is very topical. This wasteland, all these public spaces, about 80% of them are just wasteland. So they have some paths, they have some parking grounds. The local administration tries to improve some of these, but because there is no connection between those who design and those who use these spaces, these problems occur. For example, we recently had a discussion with the administration, and the administration asked why the local citizens break the hoop on the playground, and then we said we were able to prove that the playground was misplaced, or that the athletic ground was misplaced. So we were able to prove that if they had installed a playground into the avenue or into the alley that we were developing, the playground would have been broken in 2 months. So this is the way. So we have a desire, but we have no plans as yet. A very short comment about decision making. Our rule was all meetings should be published. And there is a site called Park Tatar. It includes all preliminary and final projects, and it has the accountability and feedback. So this makes the process more transparent. We also circulate information by email to all the participants, so we don't backtrack on our decisions. Indeed, what I have covered was about 15% of what we did, All of what we had was about 6 albums, and all of that is on the Urban Forum website. It's all open, it's all accessible. Friends, I see we have some other questions. We have about 15 minutes for coffee break where you can approach our speakers and ask questions personally. At 11:45 we start the next session where you will hear not less interesting insights. But now you have the coffee.